Hi, it's Robbie from Southern California, and today I'm going to talk about soil, but it's going to be in a podcast form. So you can listen to this over and over. Hopefully you'll get some seeds out of it. You know, a little seed will be sparked in your brain, and you'll be able to listen in the car. You'll be able to listen while you're working. You'll be able to listen while you're going to sleep if you want. And you can enjoy my hummingbirds while I'm talking about it. I know a lot of you are not quite ready to buy soil, and a lot of you will be buying soil, and some of you are making your own. I mean, we make our own, of course. I've talked about that for years now, but we also purchase soil. Now, I see a lot of people are coming out, which ones are better, which ones are good, which ones have more sticks in them, which ones have more of this or that. Here is the thing. I know I use the word soil, and that is actually incorrect, but you're going to hear me use it because that's the way I grew up. That's what I heard, and it's always going to be stuck in my brain that way. It's actually compost. Soil is basically more of a matter that was rocks, crushed, something that wasn't really alive. But we all tend to use the word soil, even some of us use the word dirt. So when I'm talking today, I'm actually talking about compost. So let's get that together, and so you know what I'm talking about. There are so many different types of compost, bags of soil, potting mix on the market. All kinds. You can get them as low as $1 sometimes. This is bagged growing product. All the way up to $50, $60 for small bags. Some are marked organic, some are not. And usually the cheap ones, and I've tried that, are called topsoil. There's nothing in it. You can even get cow manure, steer manure. You don't want that. Not for growing vegetables. If you're going to spread that on your lawn or maybe in your growing beds that you're growing flowers and different things on, stuff like that will work. I won't even use it to mix in to my plants. But the reason I wanted to talk about it is I have made big mistakes, okay? And I hope not to repeat it, but I'm sure I'm going to make mistakes again. It's not about making mistakes. It's about learning from your mistakes and trying something else. I bought some soil from a big grocery store that was so deadly that it's now 2 years and I'm just starting to see growth in that soil. I saved it. I've also bought soil from dollar stores, and that I want to talk about because that's really important. That did horrible for me and good for others. And that is a real important note there. The same brand did terrible for me, nothing grew, and yet did fantastic for others. So why would that be? Let's talk about products for a minute so you can kind of understand what is going on. We craft, we use different types of glues and decoupages and stuff, okay? This is manufactured. They go into a room, they have a formula, and they make this. Cornstarch. Corn is in here. This is the base of this product. So let's say the corn is from different cornfields. That's okay, because if it isn't exactly right, again, they have a formula, they can tweak it and make it where it will be the same in each product. The same, because corn is going in here. You got shampoo, conditioners. Again, it is formulated in a building and they have a recipe and formula. It even goes with the sugar for the hummingbirds. It doesn't matter what type. Some is going to be cane, some is going to be beet sugar, but the point is it's all turned into sucrose. So it's all going to be basically the same. Soil, compost. You know how I compost everything we eat? Today, there's eggshells in here, there's onion peels, there's greens and celery from the garden, cut-offs, carrots, even rosemary's in there. When you buy bagged compost, this is why we have to understand it. The bag compost you bought 6 months ago, and now you're going to buy another bag, is going to be made up of a different compound. Because what it is there's big fields where they bring in debris from trees, grass clippings, everything, probably kitchen scraps, because a lot of the cities are collecting that, and they break it down And once they test it, hopefully they're testing it, and they see it's ready to grow in, it's all broke down right, they bag it and sell it. But each bag, each batch is going to be, even in the same batch, it's going to be a little bit different. You may find more twigs in there. The next time you may not. And you go, why is it different? Because it is different. It's not the same. It doesn't matter who you buy from. Nobody is growing a certain tree and certain plants to compost every single bag exactly the same. It can't be. Really, for plants, it doesn't matter. What's important is to make sure there's no herbicides in it, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So when you get soil, you may find it really good one time and not enough, another time. There was soil I was buying, I don't really want to use the name right now, from a certain manufacturer. Everything was fine, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, it's the same bag, same product. Even the label reads the same, forest matter, all that stuff in there. But that compost, that potting soil, didn't look the same, didn't even hold water. Maybe they weren't using peat moss. Maybe last time they did and this time they didn't. Maybe they used something else in there. No matter what, when they bagged it up, it was completely different. I mean, just sit back wherever you are and think about it. How can you get the exact recipe and in every bag of potting soil when they're buying it from somebody that's breaking it down, big companies, going with big bulldozers and picking it up and then bagging it? How can it be the same? It's not going to be the same. So to say one is so much better than another, no. Basically, that bag you bought was great. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people don't like Miracle-Gro because of who they're associated with. The point is, Miracle-Gro, I do believe, test their soil, their potting mix, before they sell it. And the reason I'm saying that is I have not heard anybody have problems with that yet. And that is good. That means they're testing to see if there's herbicides. Now, what is herbicides? Herbicides is something that basically weed killer. And they put that on golf courses. They put that in places where you've got gardeners going in and maintaining and landscaping property. All that is sprayed to get rid of weeds. And then that gets into the compost that's being made. And if it's not tested, it can take years to break down. That's what I was telling you about that other soil I got. 2 years, and now I see growth because I saved it. So you want to kind of think about that. That's the biggest element for us, is the soil can't be tainted. I don't care how good the soil is. If it doesn't have that many nutrients, you can add your own, whether it's kitchen scraps or leaves from around your neighborhood where you know that nothing's been sprayed. If somebody's mowing their lawn, you want that grass cuttings if they're not treating it. But the point is, that is the biggest thing. A lot of them are adding in types of plant food, and that's why you can grow in a lot of them. They grow beautiful in the beginning. In about 2 months, the plant starts to fizzle out. What in the world is going on? Because you're using potting soil or raised bed soil, whatever, garden soil. And what's happened is it's depleted the plant, especially tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, watermelon, your heavy feeders are depleting all the plant food that was put in little capsules. Sometimes you see them. You go and you look inside the soil and you go, what is that little thing? It's kind of like a clear pearl. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's blue. Well, a lot of times that's the plant food, and it's a slow release. So it slowly melts out of the poly, whatever you want to call it, until the fertilizer's released. But once they're all released, or all the ones that are going to release are released, that's when you start to notice your plants fizzle out. Now, mine don't fizzle out until the season's over because I'm using my own kitchen scraps, and I will either put it in pitchers. You've seen a lot of my videos on that, where I have pitchers full of holes. They're buried into my containers. There's holes all around, big holes in the pitcher. I load it all the time with kitchen scraps, maybe once a week. Put some soil on top, and the earthworms gravitate to it. They feed on it, and then they're poo, worm poo, leaches back into my container and continues the process of feeding my plants. The other way, easy, dig a hole, shove in some kitchen scraps and cover it. As long as it's not on top of the plant, on the other side of your container, it's going to be fine. Because when you water, everything that the plants need will leach through the container. So we have ways to continue to get the soil to grow. But that's why I wanted to talk about that today, because a lot of times people are thinking, I can't garden because the best soil is $30, $40, $50, $60 for a small bag, and you need 10 bags to fill a garden bed, which you don't. But even to fill a pot, for some of us, $30, $40 is a lot of money to fill one pot, a good-sized container to grow a few zucchini. I'm just using that as an example. You don't need to. And you know how I fill all my containers with kitchen scraps and paper and then cover it. The point is, I want you to garden. That's the number one thing. I don't care what you garden. I don't care if it's parsley. I don't care if it's any herbs, mint, something you want to make tea out of. We need to get real food in us, because a lot of the food coming from our grocery stores are irradiated, and a lot of the nutrients that we need are gone. The vitamins are gone, but the minerals will still be there. So if we eat that food, because you may have to, you don't have a big place to garden, though you can garden in small areas. The point is, you'll have some of the nutrients that you need, those enzymes coming from something you grew, whether it's just a little pot on your balcony or a big plants in your garden. We can do that. Don't worry so much about comparison of one bag to the other. What you want to worry about is if the soil is contaminated. Should we test it? I guess if it's a new soil we never bought before, it's a good thing. Just throw a little bit in a pot, throw some seeds in there that you know are good, and if it doesn't grow, we got a problem. Because I bought some soil last time from the dollar stores, and I put lettuce seeds in there that grow like a weed all over here, and they started to come up and they turned yellow. There was something in there that wouldn't let them grow, and eventually they all died out at about an inch tall, if that. There was something in that one. And yet so many of you came back and said, I love it. I buy it all the time. It works. Because yours wasn't tainted and mine was. As I was saying earlier, I went and bought some soil. Great price. 1 cubic foot for $2.99 potting soil, mind you, because potting soil is always more money than garden soil, as they call it. I couldn't grow a thing. I couldn't figure it out. I was putting it all over the place. I bought like 10 bags of it because it was such a good price from a big store. To find out that there was an herbicide in it. That doesn't make the price good. That actually makes the product really bad. No matter what I put in, kitchen scraps, there were no earthworms coming to it. Nothing was coming to it. And so what I did was some of it got thrown out and some of it got put into a great big tote, and I've been watering it and taking care of it. I throw seeds in there. I throw some cuttings from collard. Nothing grew until this year. I'm just starting to see some weeds coming up, meaning the herbicide that was in there is starting to dissipate. 2 years. You don't want to wait 2 years. And that's why I wanted to say on Miracle-Gro, and Dr. Earth is good. That's another one. It's organic. I've never heard anything bad on them. There's a lot of good ones. Ask at your nursery. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you go, ask them, which one do you think is good? Now, again, you don't have to buy the bags that are $40, $50. A lot of us can't afford it. I can't afford it. That's why I buy Miracle-Gro a lot of times. You get a great big bag on sale for $15, sometimes 2 cubic feet. I make that go far. I take my containers and I load everything else on the bottom. Leaves, sticks, kitchen scraps, whatever I've got goes on the bottom. Then on the top, I might gather some soil around my yard and put that on the top. And then on the very top is where I put my potting soil. So the plants will start to grow on the potting soil on the top, but as they send their roots down, everything is breaking down. The microbes are getting in there and breaking down all the kitchen scraps, and then they go on to the leaves, and all that is good because it creates space for even earthworms that crawl at night and go up inside. Or if you lift up a pot that's sitting on the ground, the odds are there's earthworms under that. grab a couple handfuls of soil, of a rock or a pot, sitting on some damp soil. And the odds are you're probably going to have some earthworm eggs, even if it's not earthworms. And they'll live in there with your plants. That's what you want. If you look around, you'll see nature doesn't buy anything. Nature drops her leaves down on the ground, and anything on the very top is mulch. It doesn't break down, but anything underneath breaks down, and that becomes nature's soil. Compost, you want to call it. But that's where they grow in, what starts to break down. If you get potting soil, I don't care what brand of potting soil you go and buy, and you throw earthworms in there, they're either going to die or they're going to leave. There's nothing in there. It is the finished product. But if you took potting soil and put some kitchen scraps in there and leaves and stuff, buried a hole, dropped your earthworms in there with some kitchen scraps, they're going to live in there and they're going to thrive and they're going to eat. And what are they doing? They're creating fertilizer, plant food for your plants. So the thing is, I want you to think about that when you go to garden. And don't send me messages, I can't afford it, because you can afford it. Get the cheapest bag that you know is safe. And that doesn't mean from the dollar stores, though you can try it. Some people love it. And start building your own soil. And don't worry if there's twigs or something in it. Don't have to weigh it or anything. Sometimes there's more moisture in one than there is another. Don't throw soil out. If you've got an old bag, you open it up, it's all dried out. Make sure you open that bag up, put in some water, close the bag back, and in a few days, what's in there will absorb like a sponge, and you can use that. You can use that even towards the middle of your containers. Does nature throw soil out? No. Nature builds soil. Nature creates more leaves and matter to go on top. So put that in the middle. Mix it up with a few leaves. And then put your good potting soil, if you're not going to use your own, because I can go to another tote of mine or another container that I grew in last year and grab that. And that is great potting soil for me. Compost, soil, whatever you want to call it. And that works fantastic. So Gary, in his garden, my husband, he doesn't buy potting soil. He doesn't use any bought soil. He doesn't want to waste his money, our money. And he doesn't want to waste his time. He just shuffles from one place from another, one container on the ground, wherever he's growing, and he adds that in because it's alive. The soil we use when you have microbes in there and you have earthworms in there is alive. Now, some of the food scraps you put in there, you're saying, wait a minute, it's from the grocery store. What if it is radiated? It doesn't matter. It's going to start to rot. The moment it starts to rot, the microbes will go in there and eat it. Your plant isn't using the food from the grocery store. It's not using this as the fertilizer. It's using the waste that's coming off of this. When the microbes, if you don't have earthworms break it down, or the earthworms break it down, it's their poo, as you would say, like you use steer manure. It's what's coming off of the critters that are eating this. That's what your plants are using, the end product off the plant, not the plant. So don't worry about where it came from. Don't worry about if it's organic at that point. It doesn't really matter. It's all going to break down. But herbicides don't break down. That can take years, and that's what scares me. So think about it, because I know a lot of you are not ready yet. We're not even really ready to start gardening, and we're thinking about it. Think about the soil. Think about what people have had luck with. This is not a commercial for any type of product. I'm not endorsing any product. I'm not endorsing anybody. But I'm just going to say, for me, my daughter, other people I know, Miracle Grow, the cheap one, simple potting soil. I don't even get the fancy one that throws in more perlite or vermiculite in there. I use kitty litter to hold water in. Plain, cheap, old kitty litter. I can throw a handful or two in there and mix it up, and the kitty litter will absorb water and hold water in my soil if you're in an area that is dry, a desert area. But it has to be a special kitty litter. We'll get more into that because it cannot have any fragrance. It cannot have any additives. It must be plain clay, not treated. That works. We can create our own soil for next to nothing. You can buy one bag, you can buy a small bag for $8 and start building your soil right away, because you only have to put a little bit on the top. By the time your plant sends its roots down, whatever you loaded on the bottom, even paper, toilet paper rolls, I don't use a lot of cardboard because cardboard tends to mold And I have noticed that when I go back and dig in there, a lot of the cardboard is still there. So they use that as a mulch if they're putting in a raised bed on the bottom. If they build on top, it takes a while for cardboard to break down. But toilet paper rolls are so thin, they're not treated with anything. And the earthworms use that as space to move around. That's fine. Paper will break down. Tea bags, believe it or not, don't break down, most of them, because they're also made of plastic. People don't realize that. And the other thing I worry about is some of them are stapled and you'll be putting metal in there and you don't want to reach in ever with your hands and get cut. I don't use metal in any of my things. So, any of my plants, I want to make sure that there's no metal. Nothing's going to get on my hands if I decide to reach in. So think about creating your own soil as you go. Even if you're a new gardener and this is the first time you're gardening, start with one bag. If you're not sure, start with Miracle-Gro. If you want to get something better, get Dr. Earth or any other. There's Kellogg's, all different brands. Get a better bag to start with and then start creating your own soil from the start. You have to start from somewhere. Now, if you want to just break down your own, you still will need some sort of soil, which was not just leaf matter plants. You could go around, if you know your ground is good, and dig that up because that's going to have all kinds of minerals and calcium and magnesium and stuff in the ground because it's broken down rocks. But the point is, I would start with a bag and build that way. Start with small containers, and I think you're going to have such enjoyment gardening when you find out you don't have to spend a lot and you can grow more like Mother Nature and do it her way and not worry about what is in one bag when you bought it last year and it looked different, or why has it got so many sticks in it or pieces or what, because it's never going to be the same. It is not manufactured like these products are. There's no formula. It's whatever was in there. All we want out of the soil companies is to make sure they test it for herbicides. They don't state it, but I know a big company, like I know Dr. Earth, I'm sure, Miracle-Gro Company, Kellogg's, I'm sure they test. It's a very expensive test, I heard. And that's because everything's got to be constantly tested, so it's very expensive. So I'm sure, I haven't asked that they test it because I've never heard of them having any problems with herbicides. But the cheaper companies, I have. And as far as steer manure, whatever they're feeding the cattle, antibiotics, all that is going to be in there. That's why I don't use it. Keep that on your lawns if you want to use it there. Keep that out of your food soil that you're growing in. So I hope I gave you some thoughts. I hope you can kick back and listen to this a few times because I know we can all garden. We just have to take the time to think about how we're going to do it. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. And I think you'll turn into a big gardener before you know it because there's nothing that will give you more pleasure than picking that first tomato or eating lettuce that you grew knowing it's alive. It's truly alive because your lettuce, if you pick a leaf off and lay it on the counter, will be dried up, shriveled, and rotten within a day or two. The lettuce you buy from the grocery store, some people told me they had it in a bag on their counter for a month and it looked good. What does that tell you? With that, have a wonderful day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye.